Now, what has happened in Pakistan? Has there been a destruction of the minorities? That's the question. Overall, the context is that there has been a massive increase in Pakistan's Muslim population. In fact, they have gone from 33.7 million to 243 million, which is an increase of an astounding 636%. And now, if you read Pakistani media, you will find it full of concerns about how the country can possibly cope with such a gigantic population and its needs when it is acknowledged to be a population with not very many skills. It is known as a demographic giant, and their total fertility rate right now is 3.6, which is far above the replacement rate of 2.1 per woman. But the question is, what has happened to the minorities? Has the population of the minorities increased in the dramatic manner in which the Muslim population is increased? The answer is, for an answer, we turn now to a Pakistani expert, a lady called Farnaz Isfahani, who has written a book called Purifying the Land of the Pure, a history of Pakistan's religious minorities. And what does she say? And if I were to present to you, ladies and gentlemen, members of the UN Human Rights Council, my entire case, it would be this. And I read, I call it a drip genocide because it's the most dangerous kind of wiping out of religious communities. It doesn't happen in one day. It doesn't happen over a few months. Little by little, laws and institutions and bureaucracies and penal codes, textbooks that malign other communities until you come to the point of having this sort of jihadi culture that is running rampant, unquote. And that is a Pakistani author. She further goes on to talk about how there was a healthy mix of minorities at the time of the partition and how it has dramatically decreased. And she says Pakistan goes from 23%, which is almost a quarter of its population, to 3% now. And then she asks a wonderful question. So there has been a purification of minorities. So my big question was, where have they gone? That's what the lady asked, where have they gone? It's a valid question. Another expert, Pakistani expert, as I said, our methodology was to rely on sources which cannot be faulted for their objectivity, is Aisha Siddiqui. And she too talks about the non-Muslim population being around 24.7. Very soon the conditions changed and came down to 5%. And then she makes this startling prognosis. And if conditions do not change, even this percentage will disappear. Another Pakistani author. The New York Times basically tells the same thing. The story of the reduction of the minority population of Pakistan. 24.5% in the areas that now form Pakistan. So therefore, I'm excluding the areas in erstwhile East Pakistan. The percentage shrank rapidly. By 1998, the last government census to classify people by religion, Hindus were just 1.6%. Most estimates say it is further dwindled in the past 2 decades. The New York Times. The Voice of America. Again, the same thing. Hindu population significantly decreased, with many migrating to India to seek refuge status, citing religious persecution in Pakistan. They have long complained of prejudice against them, both from the government and society. That's important because it is the atmosphere which surrounds the minorities which is an important evidence on this matter. The Dawn, Pakistani newspaper, which I read every day, which is quite an interesting newspaper. It's a high quality newspaper, and I recommend you read it because we must knowledge is power. So you have to, I read Dawn every day to find out what's going on in the mind. Sometimes I agree and sometimes I don't. Some of the articles are very, very good, right? So what does Dawn say? Religious minorities have been made invisible in our electoral politics. Many are scared of a public discussion on the issue of Pakistan minorities. Now, I have not deliberately given the numbers of Hindus out there because we don't know. So all I have pointed out is that triangulated evidence from various sources which I've just shown, including Pakistani sources, shows there has been a dramatic decline in the numbers of minorities as opposed to the Pakistani population, which has dramatically ballooned. Hence, if you look at the first part of the technical requirement of a genocide, that stands satisfied for the simple reason there has been a destruction, not in whole, but certainly in part.